everybody, I'm back again, Algebra Part 3. Gonna do a little more advanced stuff, looking at the multi-step equations, because I know some of you had problems with that on Khan Academy, and it wouldn't hurt to go over that for those of you that are ready for it. Those of you that are still in two-step problems, I'm really recommending you choose to keep going with those and make sure you're really firm with those before you move on to this. And so I've got the other two videos on my channel. You can always watch those to refresh yourself. Remember, pause at any point if you want to practice, and then you can come back to it. So I thought I'd start with a question similar to one of the ones that we brought up at the meet the other day, just because it's got multiple steps. So I've left some information over here just to remind us of different things. SAM-DEB being the opposite of BEDMAS, because again, you're working in reverse in order to solve, because you're trying to get the variable by itself. So the other thing you've got to remember is do to one side the same that you would do to the other. Remember your opposite operations, so like adding and subtracting are opposites, multiplying and dividing are opposites, squaring and square roots are opposites. The other things that you should remember are, you should simplify things first if you can. So try to combine like terms if they happen to be there. Try to make things as easy on yourself as possible, because the less number of terms that you've got to move around, the less chance you've got of making a mistake and moving the wrong thing the wrong way. Also, the ultimate goal, sort of thinking like a football game, your goal post that you're going for is moving the terms to one side of the equation so that you have just the variable by itself on the other side. So you're isolating the variable. That's what we call it. So looking at this right now, what I would start with is I would look at either moving that 6 over to this side or distributing that -2 by everything in here. I think honestly, I'm going to start by moving the 6 out of the way. So the 6 really is like saying add 6, because that invisible plus out front. So I'm going to add 6, and then to cancel it, I'm going to subtract it from both sides. So I'm going to subtract 6 over here, okay? So this is actually going to go away, because as we talked about in the other videos, if you think about it, adding 6 and subtracting 6 just cancel out to 0, and there's no point to write that 0 in front. So then everything else is still left here, so we just leave that alone, and notice that subtract sign is still grouped with that 2. And over here, I now have -26. And again, take note, one of the key things that I do to try and make things stay organized for myself is I try to keep my equal signs lined up underneath each other. It just helps for me to keep the balance and have the two equal sides. So at this point, there's a couple things you can do. We talked about it again last time, but thinking about if you know enough about your number facts that you know that 2 and the 26 have a relationship, then you can deal with that -2 and get rid of it right off the bat. If you don't know enough about those facts, what you can do is you can distribute it to everything inside the brackets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the -2 first, and then I'll go back and I'll show you how it would work otherwise. So this -2 is multiplied by everything inside the brackets. So to cancel a multiplication, I'm going to divide by -2. Those are going to cancel out because, again, -2 divided by -2 is a +1, and we don't need to write that down. So I write down what's left. And over here, -26 divided by a -2 is going to give me a positive answer because it's 2 of the same sign. And 26 divided by 2 is 13. And the thing is, now I'm at a two-step problem, so I can move things around. And the 4a, there's no point to move that right now or do anything. We're basically back to the SAM-DEB, and we're looking at subtraction and addition. In this case, addition. So I need to cancel that out by subtracting 1 on both sides. So then those cancel. I'm left with 4a. This equals 12. And this is 4 multiplied by a, so to cancel that, I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides, and I'm left with a equals positive 3. Now again, I can go back just like I can in any equation, and I can take the value that I have here and I can substitute it in and double check that that actually worked. So for my brain, I kind of like to do that. So 4 times 3 would be 12. 12 plus 1 is going to be 13. That 13 is going to get multiplied by the 2. And so that's going to make it 26. So now I have 6 subtract 26, which will equal negative 20. And so I know that I've done what I'm supposed to do. Now, going back, I'm going to show you what the other option was that I talked about with respect to doing the distributing. So here's my negative 2. So at this point, I could have gone back and I could multiply that negative 2 by everything inside the brackets. So negative 2 times 4a is going to be negative 8a. Negative 2 times a positive 1 leaves me with a negative 2. Now, at this point, I can move that subtract 2 by adding 2 to both sides. So if I add 2, I should end up a negative 24. And on this side, those canceled out. I'm left with negative 8a. And at this point, that negative 8 is multiplied by a, so I'm going to divide by negative 8 on both sides. And I'm left with the same answer, 3. So the thing is, you can see it still gets there. It's just a little different way. And it all depends, honestly, on how good you are with your number facts and how much you remember about how things can combine in different ways. Hopefully, that was clearer than mud, and that helped a few of you with dealing with the negatives, with dealing with distributing, and with multi-step problems. Now, I'm going to show you a problem that has a fraction in it, and is multiple step. So I'm going to erase this, and I have 3x plus 1 divided by negative 2 equals negative 8. So here I have a fraction. And the thing is, initially, I want to get rid of whatever's on the bottom, or I want to simplify things if I can simplify things. Well, if I look up here, there's no like terms. If I look down here, there's only one term, so there's nothing to simplify. So what I've got to think about is, this is dividing by negative 2. So the opposite of dividing by negative 2 is multiplying by negative 2. That's going to cancel, and I'm left with 3x plus 1, and then on this side, that's going to become a positive 16. I'm going to have to move that plus 1 over to here. So 3x plus 1, so I'm going to subtract 1 to cancel it out, and then they cancel. I'm left with 3x. This is 15, and this is 3 times x, so I'm going to divide by 3. And I'm left with x equals 5. So again, I can go back and I can look at this and I can say 5 times 3 is 15. 15 plus 1 would be 16. And 16 divided by a negative 2 would leave me with that negative 8 that I have over here. Okay. Okay. So 3 times 2 plus 4w, and then plus 2 equals 16. So we're going to go with this. So again, we've got multiple things going on. There's a couple ways you can go about it. You could distribute this first and then combine the number that you're going to get with this. You can also get rid of that plus 2 right off the bat. So I would rewrite all of this because it's not changing. But then I've got to cancel this by subtracting 2 on both sides. This is going to cancel. This is going to leave me with 14. I still have 3 groups of 2 plus 4w. Now, this is one of those moments where, again, knowing your number facts is a big deal. Because this time, I would not recommend moving that 3 first, because 3 and 14 don't have a clear relationship. So to me, it would be more challenging because you'd end up with an improper fraction. And then, for those of you that hate fractions with passion, this would be the moment you would not want. So what I would do first is I would distribute that 3 by everything inside the brackets. So 3 times 2 is going to leave me with 6. 3 groups of 4w is going to give me 12w. And over here, I have 14. So I'm going to now move that 6 over to here. So I'm going to take it away from both sides. Now, I feel like this is not going to come out to a pretty number. Oh, you know what I forgot? That's okay. We're going to deal with it. So that cancels out. I'm left with 12w, and this is going to leave me with 8. Now, if I divide this by 12, that's going to leave it as a fraction. You could reduce it down to a decimal, but most easily what I would do is I would just reduce the fraction. So this is 12, 8 twelfths. You can divide both of those numbers by 4, and you end up with 2/3. Now, I'm going to go back and fix the problems when I copied down the question. So this is an example of where if you don't copy the question down correctly, it can throw off your answer a little bit. So I'm going to erase this because this was supposed to be a negative. So if I deal with all of this in the first line the same way, so I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. This is going to make that negative 18. And I still have 3 groups of 2 plus 4w. Now, this time, that 3 and the 18 do have a relationship. So I probably would deal with the 3 first. So what I would do is I would divide by 3 on both sides. Those cancel out. I'm left with 2 plus 4w. And this would be negative 6. Now, I've got to move that 2 over there. So I'm going to subtract it from both sides. And I'm left with 4w, and this would be negative 8. And at this point, I'm dividing by 4, and so w equals negative 2. And so again, it worked out, and the other one was fine too, because it just made it a fraction, and we could reduce it. But the key is, you want to get a variable equal to another number. Now, theoretically, if I had gotten all the way down here and that was a negative w equals negative 2, it's not appropriate to leave that as a negative w. What you need to do is think of it as an imaginary number 1, and you need to divide by negative 1 on both sides, because that'll cancel out. You're left with a positive w, and then that would just change the sign over here to a positive 2. So just keep that in mind, because a lot of people forget and they get to the end, and if they happen to have a negative answer or negative variable, they think that that's all done because it doesn't have a number in front of it. I feel like that's actually quite a bit of information for all of you. So I'm going to leave that. I'm not even going to address the squares and square roots in this one. I think I'll come back to that maybe in another video, and I'll maybe revisit Pythagorean theorem so we can see where it's in action. Anyhow, hopefully you enjoyed this and you got something out of it, and I will talk to you later this week. Bye.